Hi, I'm John Bartley and I'm running for mayor of Stillwater. And I appreciate you coming back to catch the next installment of our conversation. Last time, when we talked about some of the more fun things I'd like to accomplish here in Stillwater, I made reference to a possible recycling program, and that's what I want to use this conversation for, is to talk about recycling. Now, recycling is getting a lot of conversation, and I think that's very good. We all know the benefits of recycling: better for the environment, reduce the amount going to the landfill, reduce, reuse, recycle. We all know it, and I don't want to use this to really get into those things because they're all very self-evident. What I want to talk about is the recycling programs. Lots of cities have recycling programs. Some are better than others, but they're all different. And when you go and actually a good resource, if you go to different cities' websites and just you can search recycle program, and you can see all the different variations that cities have on the recycling programs. So just saying recycling program is way too generic a term to really know what they're talking about. So we've got to dig into the details, and that's where it gets tough, because even though a lot of people have recycling programs, it's those details that make them different, and some are more effective than the others. Now, from a city perspective, we've got a couple priorities that need to be looked at when developing a recycling program. And the number one priority needs to be to reduce the amount of waste that actually goes to the landfill. From the city's perspective, we've got all the green reasons to want to do that, but we also have a money reason for wanting to do that. The more trash that gets put into the landfill, the more it costs the city, and therefore the more it costs the citizens. So what we can reduce being put in the landfill, meaning divert it into recycling, the less it will cost the city and the citizens on the landfill costs. Now, the second priority that we got to be looking at is making it easy or simple on the customer. And we'll get into some of how we want to accomplish that here in a minute. So those are the two top priorities, I think, from a city point of view. Now, here are some issues when you're talking about recycling. The first is, when you're implementing it, is this going to be a mandatory versus voluntary program? Now, you can talk cost, mandatory, voluntary. You can also talk participation, mandatory, voluntary. What I think, let me come back to the proposed program. Another issue when it comes to recycling is, do you go, and here are the buzzwords. You've got single stream, meaning the consumer has one cart that they put all different mixed materials in, or multi-stream, meaning that there are separate carts and the consumer separates the materials. Obviously, you can tell which is easier on who at that point. And then the third big issue is what materials. Each material is different. It all boils down to what is the market going to be to sell those recyclable materials. There are problems with plastic. Different grades of plastic, they don't weigh a whole lot. There's problems with glass. Flip it around. They weighs a whole lot and is hard to deal with. Cardboard, if it gets wet, you got problems. So every material's got its own issues. But anyway, what materials is another primary concern. Now, those are kind of the problems or the things to look at. Here's what I see as a very workable general explanation of a good recycling program for Stillwater. What I'd like to see is that the city does the recycling program, that the city goes around. We know the routes, we know where your house is, we've got the equipment. We can go around and actually do the collection of the material. What I'd like to see is a second bin, a second wheeled bin at every house, that on your trash day, you've got your trash can and you've got your recycle bin, both wheeled out there, certain number of feet apart, and trash comes by, a little bit later recycling comes by and picks it up. I want to see a single stream to make it easier on the consumer. And so I also want to close the non-manned recycling centers we have around town. They are not effective, they're not doing their job, and I think it's just leading to trash flying around. So I want to close those, but I want to keep the manned recycling center at 8th and Perkins opened, because there we can collect other items such as oil and batteries and electronic waste that a curbside recycling program won't accomplish. Now, that's a very quick run through on a recycling program, but we can dig into these details, and I think we'll really be able to get a good program in place that will divert trash out of the recyclables out of the landfill, will be cost effective for the city and for the customers, and it will be good for the environment. So, real quick explanation. We can talk about it more later. I appreciate you watching, and please remember to vote on March 6th.